Welcome back, guys. And today, what we're going to be reviewing is something very, very special. Okay, something that I'm very, very passionate about is the importance of certain books, principles, ideologies, and people's life lessons and wisdom compiled into informational resources that you can download into your brain, right? And into the programming of your mind. Okay, people spend their whole lives experiencing certain principles, experiencing certain ideologies, and they give it to us on a silver platter for us to digest. Okay? Whenever you're considering certain books to digest, certain books to read, and certain books to spend your time and invest your time into, it's important to understand that it's all relative, and it should be all relative to the person that you're wanting to become and the person that you want to embody. Okay? Today, what we're going to be reviewing are some of the books that shaped my reality, my character, and gave me the understanding necessary to get to where I'm at now. So, getting started. Discipline is Destiny by Ryan Holiday. Okay, this is a great book. Okay, this is a great book on understanding discipline, understanding the principles of discipline, understanding what discipline actually is on a foundational level, and why discipline plays such a great role in becoming a successful person. The beautiful thing about Ryan Holiday is that he breaks down foundational principles, and he writes a book on foundational principles, right? He has a book on courage. He has a book on discipline. Breaks down exactly why discipline is important, but he also he gives principles for what discipline is, right? So it allows you to really have a foundational understanding, and it allows you to change your perspective of why discipline is important and how a discipline applies on a day-to-day reality, right? And the cope and the ego that stems behind the justification to not give into the discipline, because naturally there's going to be things, there's going to be voices, there's going to be the urge to submit and give in. It's going to be, he breaks down all of the justifications that we make in each chapter in order to counterattack properly with the understanding of how to embody the discipline through the cope that is the justification, right? It's a beautiful book. For those of you that are looking for a good read, this book specifically, I put it in B tier, just because the standard has to be high. We might actually move it up, but yeah, great book. Next, we have Atomic Habits by James Clear. Beautiful, beautiful book. Breaks down the understanding of how I actually have my books here on me because I want to showcase to you that I'm not just fucking yapping. But beautiful book. This book breaks down the importance of habits, how to set habits, and why habits are important in order to shape your reality rather than setting goals. He talks about the importance of setting proper systems, right? Setting a system and setting systems that allow you to reach that goal and fall in love with the process, right? Because in today's age, it's very easy to set a goal. It's very easy to say, okay, I want to make $1 million this year, but it's not about making the $1 million rather than the habits that you embody on a day-to-day that are going to get that result, right? So it talks about that. It talks about the importance of making the right changes in your life, and it talks on identity as well. The reason why people don't have the proper habits is because they don't have the proper identity, right? They don't have the proper identity to associate with certain actions that they need to in order to completely transform their reality, right? Great book. I put it in A tier, just because habits are key to really having the proper understanding of how to operate in your day-to-day reality for your results that you want, right? Super important. Next, we got the Daily Stoic right here. Beautiful book. Shares the importance of foundational principles, breaks down philosophy very, very well. It's a book that has a page for each day of the year. I really love, honestly. I love the way they structure the books for every single day of the year. It's a great way to understand the importance of philosophy and stoicism in general, right? If we're looking at stoicism from the lens of like a book, I think this is probably the perfect embodiment of stoicism, especially because it's refined by Ryan Holiday. The other book that I'd recommend and say that is close to that is meditation. So I'd say Meditations is on par with the Daily Stoic. I'd put Meditations probably in B tier, just because the Daily Stoic is a lot more refined, and it's not just Marcus Aurelius's Meditations, right? So, for example, the Daily Stoic has daily principles from not only Marcus Aurelius, but he has Epictetus. He puts in Seneca. He adds in different meditations from different philosophers from the time that understood the principles of Stoicism. It provides more of a diverse understanding of what Stoicism is and the beautiful principles that we need to embody on a day-to-day to understand how to live our lives better, right? I put this one in A tier just because it is diverse and it's easy to read, very compact, great book, right? In terms of meditations, obviously Meditations is a great book. It was compounded by Marcus Aurelius' journal. It wasn't supposed to be, put even out to the public. The reason why I put it in B tier, not A tier, is because the Daily Stoic has the breakdowns and it has the diversity of the different Stoics in that day and age, right? Next, we have Eat That Frog. Great book. The basic principle of this book and the premise of this book is the importance of doing the hard thing first, right? So the moment you wake up, it basically has this principle where you wake up and you do the hardest thing first, like slay the dragon. That's what I call it to my students, right? And the importance of it is not procrastinating the main thing that you need to get done and actually getting done the most important task, right? The kill shot. Great book. I don't think you need to necessarily read the entire book to understand the premise of it. But yeah, it's a great principle nonetheless. Next, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. I think I'm going to put Rich Dad, Poor Dad probably in B tier. Rich Dad, Poor Dad was one of the first books that I read to understand investing, to understand how I need to be viewing money, how I need to be viewing a job, how I need to be viewing experience, and why I even would get a job in the first. When I was 19, I read this book, and the main thing that I took away from this book is understanding the importance of always investing into yourself, investing into your mind, investing into who you are, and only investing into things that are going to yield a profit, yield a return, right? So it taught me the importance of ROI. It taught me the importance of putting my money in places where I'm going to get it back and not just wasting my money on things that are unnecessary, right? It basically shares the premise of the rich dad being the investor, understanding what's actually valuable in life, putting his money where he's going to get a good return on investment, and the poor dad basically trading his time for money, spending his money on things that are not going to yield a return on investment, right? So this book is actually very important to read on a foundational level. If you're a beginner, I actually might put it in A tier, just because it's like, if I didn't have that foundational understanding of how to even like spend my time and money and what I should even be valuing, I wouldn't be here. So I'm gonna put it in A tier, right? Next, let's go with Richest Man in Babylon, right? I read this book. I think this was like the third or fourth book that I read when I was really pursuing the understanding of like money, investments. And this one didn't really resonate with me. It's very long. It's a very long book compared to the other. It's not very like pragmatic book in a sense of like the Daily Stoic, right? Or Atomic Habits, where you're going to read the chapter, you understand what the chapter's about, and you're now reading on that topic and digesting that topic, right? This book is more of like a parable, right? Like you're reading a story, and then you get the point and you're understanding the point as you read this story and as you read like the experience of this man's account, right? Didn't really resonate with the book much, but I might give it another shot. The 4-Hour Workweek by Timothy Ferriss. This was actually one of the first books that I listened to. I didn't read it. I don't have the physical copy of it, but I did listen to the book, and it was basically, I remember I was working construction at the time. It basically explains the importance of setting your business up and setting your life up for success, right? And not trading your time for money, right? So this one I read actually right after, I think, Rich Dad, Poor Dad and The Richest Man in Babylon. But that was kind of like in that season where I was really understanding the system, and I was really understanding how to break free. The 4-Hour Workweek talks about setting your business up, delegating. It talks about not trading your time for money. Again, great principle. Basic premise, great book. I do think this is a foundational read. So like for example, I would recommend reading Rich Dad, Poor Dad, 4-Hour Workweek. These two are very important to break out of the system, just because you're not going to view your investments properly if you don't read this book, and you're not going to know how to set yourself up properly and understand the 9 to 5 and understand how to even like sell your services, etc. if you don't read this book. It's not that you need these books to succeed or understand these principles necessarily, but if you're looking for a good read, these books outline these principles pretty clearly. All right, so next we have Your Next 5 Moves by Patrick Bet-David. Okay. This is a great book in understanding trajectory, right? And really planning for the future. in the beginning stages of your entrepreneurship journey, you're not really going to understand exactly how to make proper decisions, and you'll learn along the way, obviously through mistake and error. But I do wish that I had this book earlier in my journey, just because I think that if I would have read that book and really digested it properly at the time where I needed it, I think I would have had the proper understanding of how to view certain decisions, right? And make certain decisions for the success of my future rather than the short term, right? There was a lot of opportunities that I didn't take just because I didn't have the proper clarity and structure, right? I actually have this book in physical copy now. But yeah, it's important to understand a lot of these principles that this book teaches. This book actually goes through a 5-part structure of clarity, strategy, growth tactics, skills, and insight, basically allowing you to make the proper decisions to actually have the trajectory necessary to succeed, right? This book also talks a lot on like standard operating procedures and actually having a procedure for yourself, for your business. So this book's going in B tier. Next, Ikigai, right? This is a very important principle in understanding the root of life. The Ikigai principle really reviews the importance of setting yourself right in the middle to do what you're good at, what you love, what the world needs, and what you can be paid for. Okay? It cuts through all the bullshit of modern day society's idea of building a business that you don't actually enjoy and actually building a life from a state of passion, right? This is one of the books that actually inspired me to start helping other people, to start coaching and consulting other people, because I truly felt deep in my heart that that was what I wanted to do, right? And this book actually inspired me to take that certain action to actually build a life that I actually wanted to live, right? To wake up and work in a business that I actually love, right? The Ikigai actually stems from a Japanese parable talking about the importance of surrounding your life with these different facets of wealth rather than just focusing on money, 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 or just what you love, right? Or just what you're good at. Because the thing is to create full abundance in your life, you need to understand all of the principles that are going to lead you to that abundance so you can feel fulfilled in your day-to-day reality, right? This is a great book. Next, Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill, okay? This one's going in A tier just because this book is a foundational to understanding the principles and the laws of God's provision, the laws of God's nature, the laws of abundance, right? Think and Grow Rich is a foundational masterclass to understand how to operate in your day-to-day reality with the proper vibrational state to achieve financial success, right? Naturally, the world and society propagates these ideas onto us that are completely contrary to having certain faith, having certain belief in yourself, and having the proper understanding of how you need to operate in the day-to-day reality to achieve the financial freedom, to achieve the abundance that we're looking for, right? Honestly, I think that Think and Grow Rich should be S tier. I think it should be S tier. I'm putting it S tier. Great book. Next, How Successful People Lead, okay? I'm putting this one in C tier. It's a great book. It's actually a very condensed book. I actually have it here. Condensed book, not very big, but it does review key principles in order to understand how to be a great leader, and how to basically set proper standards for your team, for the people around you, and it does go through like very foundational principles, right? Honestly, like if you're looking to start understanding leadership, like these books are very, very thin, and they're condensed and packed with like very, very good principles to understand. To be a good leader, you need to understand the programming and foundationals of leadership, right? Like this book is about taking your influence to the next level in regards to how you lead other people and how you show up for other people, right? If you aspire to be a 6 to 7 figure CEO and entrepreneur, leadership is probably the number one most important part of doing that, right? Because if you don't know how to lead other people, you'll never be able to scale your business. You'll never be able to delegate. You'll never be able to and bring on the right people for your operation and for your business, right? So the key thing that you need to get clear on is leadership, how to lead other people, becoming that 6 to 7 figure CEO and entrepreneur, and embodying the right principles in your day-to-day operations, right? This book is very, very clear on how to do that. And I actually recommend this book. If you're a beginner as well, like this book, I'm actually going to go over it at the end of this video as well. It's like the main books that you need to read if you're a beginner. This book is one of those, right? Super important. Next, the subtle art of not giving a fuck. Okay, I'm putting this one in D tier. Mark Manson's a great author, but he's a little kooky when it comes to the way that he's delivering it. Basically, his whole phallus in this book is we're all gonna die. There's no real reason to actually give a shit about what anybody else thinks about you. Everybody's just caught in their own fucking reality and thinking their own thing. Maybe I should read it again. Honestly, I think I will read it again. This is one of those books that I actually listened to. I didn't read it or buy a physical copy. But I might give it another shot. Premise of the book is actually a very important principle. However, whenever I listened to the book on audiobook, it didn't really resonate, right? I'm actually curious to hear if you guys have a different opinion on this book in the comments. Next, Sun Tzu, Art of War. Okay. I'm putting this one in A tier. I do think it's better than Rich Dad Poor Dad. Okay, for the record. Daily Stoic, I do think so. I actually have like 3 physical copies of this book. Art of War. So yeah, The Art of War is a very good book. It talks about foundational principles, and if you can apply, this is a little bit more advanced. I would say like anybody that wants to read The Art of War, you need to have a basic understanding of business. You have to have a basic understanding of self-improvement, because if you read the Art of War without those understandings, it's gonna a lot of these principles that he talks about is gonna go right over your head, right? Because you're not viewing it from the proper lens necessary to actually succeed and achieve, right? So that's important to understand. Like just in general, for the books that I'm laying out here and the principles I'm laying out here, is understanding that there should be a cadence and the order and the hierarchy that you read these books. For example, if you read The Art of War without understanding Rich Dad Poor Dad, 4-Hour Work Week, your next 5 moves, like for example, then you're going to have a different perspective on this book, because you're not living with the foundationals dialed in. You're not living with the foundational understanding of how to operate your business, how to operate even your life, how to have the proper perspective of your life. And you're reading The Art of War. You don't even understand your life is a war. Super important. Blue Ocean Strategy. Okay. Blue Ocean Strategy is going to go in A tier, just because Blue Ocean Strategy is one of the main books that we used when I was scaling my clients in Miami. To scale them to the next level, we need to make certain decisions in order to yield the right margin, to understand margin. This book is a key in understanding how to differentiate yourself from competition, right? In the marketplace, in business, how to set yourself apart. It all stems from your understanding of the market. And if you don't have the understanding of what the red ocean is, what the blue ocean is, then naturally you're going to compete like everybody else in the market, right? Blue Ocean Strategy basically outlines exactly how to differentiate yourself from the market, how to set yourself apart, how to stand out, how to communicate properly to the people that are looking to pay you money, and how to get other people and how to get your customers to pay you money without competing with everybody else in the same way, right? This book had a great impact on my life, my business, and also the impact that it's made on my clients just from me reading it is a pretty drastic change, right? I would recommend, obviously these books have different categories, different niche, right? So for example, this is a business book, this is a business book, this is like a self-mastery book, right? So it's kind of hard to rank them with these books. I'm going to leave it in A tier for now. But great book. Once you're a few years into your journey, once you understand the market, once you understand how cash flow works, etc., I do think that this book is the next step for you to understand how to differentiate yourself, because it talks on a lot of the foundational principles of why the system is broken in regards to competing with everybody else, like in a bloody red ocean. If you've never been in a bloody red ocean, then you won't understand a lot of these principles, and you won't understand the value of this book, right? So the whole idea is that you understand the value of the book, but you won't understand the value of the book if you have not lived the pain points or understand or experience the pain points, right? This book is potent if you understand the pain points, right? Same with all these books. I would recommend reading this book once you're a few years in and have some experience under your belt, right? Next, The Magic of Thinking Big. Basic principle, right? Don't think small. When you think small, what you end up doing is you basically end up castrating yourself into your own disbelief. You end up castrating yourself into your own lack of understanding, your own lack of awareness. And really all it does is just, it corrodes your faith. It corrodes your sense of belief if you do not think big. This is how I like to lay out the principle of this book. When you aim for the stars, you will naturally, hitting the moon is easy, right? Hitting the moon is easy if you aim for the stars, right? When I was focusing mainly on coaching, when I was doing bodybuilding and I was running my coaching business, I would tell my clients, you need to reach for 4,000 calories, for example, right? Because if you reach for 4,000 calories, you will naturally hit 3,700, for example. Like hitting 3,700 when you're aiming for 4 is easy. So setting the bar high and setting it slightly out of reach is what's going to allow you to push yourself. It's what's going to allow you to become. It's what's going to allow you to become the person that you need to become in order to even reach the heights that you want to achieve, right? If you don't set the bar high and if you don't think big, then what's going to end up happening is you're just going to think small and you're naturally going to fall under that bar. It's kind of like comparison. If you compare yourself to the average man on a day-to-day basis, you will feel content with yourself. You will feel at peace with yourself. You will feel like, okay, at least I'm not like XYZ, or at least I'm not falling like, or at least I'm not at this standard. The issue with that is that you're not setting your bar high enough if you actually want to achieve the levels that you want to achieve, right? This book talks about the magic of thinking big. You're naturally going to become the type of person that can make an impact, that can actually achieve the goals that you want to achieve when you set the bar high, okay? Pushing yourself, achieving your limits, and actually setting the standard for your life in cadence with the goals that you actually want to achieve and the person you want to become. You will naturally become the person you want to become when you think big. Thinking small is a complete hindrance to high achievers because you'll cop yourself out. You will cope. You will procrastinate. You will be content with your inaction, right? When you think big, it forces you to take bigger actions, take bigger leaps, right? This is key. This is a key principle. Next, we have the 48 laws of power. Okay. I want to put this one in S tier. Maybe not S tier. Maybe A tier, just so I don't get called a Machiavellian person. But the laws of power is a foundational understanding to be a powerful person. The reason why the 48 laws of power is such an important book to understand and read is because naturally, whenever you're climbing the ranks, whenever you're building your business, whenever you're operating with other high achievers, you need to understand how to conduct yourself properly to not get manipulated. You need to understand how to conduct yourself properly to not get basically to not get screwed over, to not get played. You need to understand how to command respect. You need to understand how to play your cards right on the table. I do think that this book is S tier for me at least, because I like to consider myself a very powerful person. Just because in my day-to-day reality, if you ask, who is the most powerful in this situation, a lot of people would say Sean is a very powerful person, right? And it's not because oh, I'm so fucking powerful and I'm so sick, but what it is understanding the principles of power. You don't you have a different understanding of how you view and it is a very dark energy book, right? I do think that the laws of power is a very dark energy. And I've had people tell me, oh, well, Robert Greene, is this the most powerful dude? Like, he wrote a book on power. But let me tell you something. Robert Greene understands the laws of power because he's lived it. He's been a victim to it, okay? He's been a victim to it. He understands these principles. He's watched it. Experience is a beautiful teller because, especially the corporate world, you naturally come across a lot of these things. There's hierarchies. There's things in place. There's other people. You have to manage egos. You have to be careful. These are the things that this book outlines, right? How to win favor with other people in a worldly way. It is important to understand a lot of these principles in order to navigate these sort of dynamics in a way that is not going to completely, where you're not going to get trampled, where you're not going to get walked all over, right? Where you're going to command your respect, where you're going to naturally be somebody who's respected because the way you carry yourself and the way that you navigate a lot of these situations and circumstances, right? It's a great read. I would say if you're a beginner and if you don't have the right heart posture and you haven't allowed God to guide you to read this book, don't read it, because you will start becoming like a psychopath with Machiavellian tendencies very quickly. Next, we have the 21 Laws of Irrefutable Leadership. Okay. This book is a foundational book in understanding leadership, right? But not only understanding leadership in a godly way, and with good principles, with understanding how to conduct yourself, how to actually get the most out of your team. I would say that this book, How Successful People Lead, it's the subsidized version of the 21 Laws, right? So the beautiful thing about these books is that it reviews laws, and it makes it very easy to conduct yourself properly and read the book in a pragmatic way, right? So this book is a key. I've actually had 3 copies of this book, but it is actually so good that I give them away to people that I care about, like my clients, my business partners, because if you don't understand how to lead, if you don't understand leadership, you will never run a corporation. You will never run a successful business, right? You will struggle the whole time that you run a successful business, right? Leadership is the key to delegating. It is the key to instilling fight inside of other people. When I first launched my exotic car rental agency, I was running it and I had 2 employees. I wasn't paying them fucking anything, but they fought. They fought because I didn't have the capital, right? So when you're in a startup, you need to understand that leadership is probably the most valuable asset that you can use, because you understand people, you understand how to get them to fight, you understand how to get them to buy into you. You understand how to really get them to be on fire for you. Imagine if you have guys that are all passionate about your operation, about what it is that you're building together as a collective, that fight for the badge every single day. How to keep them accountability, right? This book, if there's any book that you read, well, okay, it depends on where you're at, obviously, like in your journey. But like if you've already been like running an operation for a couple years and you don't understand and leadership, read this fucking book. Okay, this book is going to change your life. It changed my life. It changed the life of my clients, right? The laws from this book alone has led us to do like 6 figures a month for some of our clients, right? Just because of the principles in this book that allowed us to do a lot of those things, right? Read this book. Read this book. Like if you don't read this book now, read it. I need to get this book again. I don't even have the book currently because I gave it away. But yeah, this book is a key. I'd actually put it probably like above Power, honestly. Just because John C. Maxwell is a great writer as well. He has great principles. Yeah, great book. Next, we have Principles by Ray Dalio. Okay, this one's going into B tier. This book is a complete masterclass on understanding why principles are so important to conducing a result, right, and yielding a result. Okay, principles are how you shape society. Principles are how you shape yourself, how you shape your own identity, how you shape the identity of your family, how you shape the identity of your team. Okay, if you don't have the proper principles in your life, you will naturally have a hard time growing. You will naturally have a hard time getting other people to fight for you, getting other people to like you, to love you, because you don't stand for anything. This book outlines the importance of having the proper principles, of instilling the proper principles in order to build something that will last, right? Principles are the key to getting results, right? If you don't have principles, then you'll naturally have a hard time getting other people to buy into your results, right? The better principles that you have and the more principles that you have, the more results you will achieve, right? Because you stand for something. If you don't stand for something, you stand for nothing, right? So having the proper standard and principles for yourself, for your life, for your woman, for your family, this is how you actually build something for the future, right? Super important. Next, we have the 3 things that successful people do. I do think that this one is on par with How Successful People Lead. Great book. I actually read, this was one of the first books that I actually read to understand how to become a successful person. I actually gave this book to another one of my clients, but this book really outlines what success is. Okay. A lot of people think success is the money, or success is having certain things, or having the Lambo, or having these things. But in reality, what success is the journey. Success is the process. Success is becoming, right? So when you have that basic understanding and foundational understanding, it really does allow you to build your life from the right perspective, and it allows you to have the proper patience, the proper cadence, and allows you to respect the process of what success is. Okay. I do think like if you're a beginner, this book would be a great book to read. I would recommend reading it before How Successful People Lead. This is probably the first. I recommend reading this book first, because if you don't understand what success is and how people operate and view success in general, you will never really be a successful person, because you're still chasing money and doing all this shit. Next, we have The Obstacle is the Way by Ryan Holiday. Another great book. I would say this book is on par with Eat the Frog. I would say it's written better than Eat the Frog, obviously, because it's Ryan Holiday. He has the background of the theology, understanding the Stoicism. Any book by Ryan Holiday is honestly a win, right? Ryan Holiday writes great books in the understanding of constant self-improvement. He knows and understands the Ikigai deeply, right, and how we should conduct ourselves. So obviously, I recommend. This is a great book, right? I'd actually let me promote Discipline is Destiny. Obstacle is the Way is obviously going to be. We could leave it there, but yeah, great book. This book basically is the same principle as Eat the Frog, right? The way that you improve is by going directly head on and grabbing the bull by the horns and just getting shit done. The reason why a lot of people procrastinate and stagnate is because they are not attacking their obstacles head on. They're not attacking the things that they're going through and the issues head on, right? The way that you achieve and the way that you continue to improve is by directly attacking the issues that are holding you back, right? The main thing that you need to get done is usually the solution, right? This is why Tate says raw action wins, right? Raw action is the thing that solves everything, is because you are attacking the things that you're going through head on with solution, action. The obstacle is the way, right? Great read. I think this is a foundational to read as well. Eat That Frog is basically the same principle as this book, but I recommend obviously reading this. Next, we have The Laws of Human Nature, okay? This is a great book for understanding psychology and on a psychological level, why people do what they do and how to conduct yourself, how other people conduct themselves, and why people conduct themselves in a certain way, right? This breaks down basically the complete understanding. I actually have a copy here. Here you go. It breaks down the keys to human nature, understanding how to basically deal with other people's issues, how to deal with yourself, how to conduct yourself, and why people act in a certain way. It breaks down trauma. It breaks down the actions behind other people's trauma, and understanding how to proper conduct yourself and decode other people's personality types and psychological issues. This is a great book. I do think this is a must read to understand the psychological implications behind other people's actions, and I would recommend this to any beginner to read as well. Next, we have the Book of Five Rings, which I also have a hard copy of. I think my brother's using it at the moment. But the Book of Five Rings is a great book because it talks about Miyamoto Musashi, which is a samurai in ancient Japan, if I'm not mistaken. It talks about the beautiful fighting strategies and even the psychological warfare that he used on his rivals, right? And he was the greatest swordsman, if I'm not mistaken. He was the greatest swordsman of ancient Japan. He was the greatest samurai. He won like over 1,000 one-on-one battles, one-on-one duels, with his sword, without his sword. And it talks about these beautiful stories of how he psychologically won these battles before he even drew his sword, right? And it's a very traditional book, but it talks about the psychological warfare that he played on his enemies to basically win these battles, right? This book is a good refresher because it allows you to apply history to the battles that you face on a day-to-day basis, right? I actually kind of want to like promote this book. I think this book is a B tier. Obviously, it's a different style book. It's more history based, but it's also a war strategy book similar to The Art of War, right? Great book. We have Choose Your Enemies Wisely by Patrick Bet-David. I put this book in C tier. It's a great book, but this book basically outlines the importance of having enemies in general. Everybody has an enemy, right? Everybody has somebody that they're fighting against, a reason why. It basically outlines the intention behind people's actions and the reason why you need to have enemies. And if you don't realize you have an enemy, then you need to really dive deep on the enemies that you're actually fighting. Maybe it's insecurity. Maybe it's the way that your grandfather talked to you whenever you were young and you didn't understand why he talked to you that way, right? Maybe it's the way that people treated you in the past. Maybe it's that breakup, that girl that didn't work out or whatever, right? It basically is it's a business planning book and cultivating your pain and cultivating your reason why to have victory, right? I do recommend reading this book if you do not first understand like the reason why you do certain things. It basically talks about your enemy being something that's rooted deep in your heart and strikes the emotion inside of your heart, because that's going to be the rawest form of action. It's going to be the rawest form of tangible output that you can actually express. It gives you unlimited energy, right? Because you have an enemy that you're fighting against that is not just like, oh yeah, my competitor. You know, you're fighting against all your traumas. You're fighting against the pain that person said when you were 3, you know, or maybe not 3, but when you were young, right? Great book. Next, we have Courage is Calling. This is a great book, another psychology book written by Ryan Holiday. I would put this in the same tier as A tier with Discipline is Destiny. These are similar books. So, for example, where is Courage is Calling? Here it is. Oh, shit. So here it is right here. Courage is Calling. I got the hard copy here. Breaks them down into chapters that are actually very digestible. We're talking like 4 to 10 pages max. And he basically outlines the importance of like having certain understanding of what courage is, right? And facing your fears head on, right? Facing what it is that you're going through head on, right? It's a beautiful deep dive. Ryan Holiday is probably like one of my favorite authors, honestly. Ryan, if you're watching this, bro, I love you. The beautiful thing about Ryan Holiday's style is that it naturally speaks to the masculine force inside of you. It naturally speaks to your demos, right? It naturally speaks to your spirit, your masculine fight, which I recommend any young man that wants to become powerful and wants to become a force to read Ryan Holiday's books, right? Courage is Calling, great book. I recommend. We're putting it in A tier for now. Obviously, I don't like the way that they're both here. Maybe let me think. Discipline is Destiny, probably more important than courage, because naturally discipline reinforces courage. So we're gonna actually put these. I'd put this one above here. Daily Stoic, Discipline is Atomic Habits. Discipline is Destiny. Daily Stoic probably goes above all these shits. Next, we have the 21 most powerful minutes in a leader's day. I think this is S tier book, just because it is a daily devotional book in a sense, right? Where you read a page a day, right? And it helps you understand leadership with godly understanding, right? It helps you understand leadership from a lens of understanding the truth, understanding how God calls us to live, and bringing certain laws to existence, right? So, for example, a lot of these laws, they don't have basic practices. They don't have prayer. They don't understand a lot of these things. So they're not going to put it into their book, right? So the beautiful thing about this book is that it basically reinforces the spiritual implications to empower your leadership in a godly way, right? I love John C. Maxwell just because he does have that spiritual edge, which makes the digestion of certain principles a lot easier, right? So, good book. I recommend these books as daily devotionals just to read 3 pages a day. If you can't read 3 pages a day, then I don't know what to tell you, right? But yeah, this book is a very clear understanding. It also applies a lot of the biblical understandings to leadership and how God used great leaders and taught great leaders for them to be empowered, right? This book is really mainly about empowering your leadership in a godly way and in a spiritual way, right? Great book. I put this one in A tier. Next, the 33 Strategies of War. And I think this book goes actually in A tier, honestly. I think this book goes in A tier. I think it's a little tricky. I think it goes at the bottom of A tier. Is The Art of War better than 33 Strategies? No. Courage is Calling. Discipline is Destiny. Yeah. I'd say it goes mid A tier just because it does have, I would say like the chapters are a little bit dense, a lot more dense than, it's similar to the Laws of Power in that sense, but I do think like these chapters are slightly too dense. I wouldn't recommend reading each chapter one by one, but if you skim through the book itself, understanding the principles of war and the 33 strategies that Robert Greene talks on, it's important to know, it's important to have, right? It's similar to the Laws of Power in that sense where it's very dense. I know there's a version of the condensed Laws of Power and the condensed 33 strategies, but this copy specific, I would put in A tier. Next, we have The Way of the Superior Man, okay? And this book is going to go straight at the top. This is an S tier book. I don't care what you say. This book has had probably the greatest impact on my understanding of intersexual dynamics, female dynamics, understanding how to conduct yourself as a man, urges, sexual desire. This book is a must-read for any man looking to become a successful person. If you do not have control over your sexual desire, over your sexual interest, over your natural masculine energy, then you will be at a disadvantage, right? I have a copy of this book. I've skimmed through this book. It's actually it's a very pragmatic read. It's a very pragmatic read. Like, David Dita is not going on tangents about how Napoleon had a wife that didn't respect him and all this shit. He gets very much to the point. He has chapters that are very pragmatic, straight to the point. It talks about excuses. It talks the basic premises of the masculine energy and the feminine energy and how to conduct yourself properly in that in the intersexual dynamics, right? If you're a man in general and you haven't read this book, you're at a disadvantage. Simply Don't Hurt Me. I would put this one obviously in a very, very sad book. Goggins has lived a very crazy life. But it talks about mental fortitude. It talks about how to use pain. It talks about his reason why. And it talks about becoming an exceptional person that loves the process. The 5 dysfunctions in a team. Okay, I'm going to put this one in C tier. But this book basically outlines the importance of what goes into a team, how to operate in a team, and why teams ultimately fail, right? In corporate, in business, whatever it is that you're running in startups, it's important to understand why teams fail. And if you don't understand why these things fail, then you're going to have naturally a hard time, because what you're doing is you're blinding yourself to certain things that could be a potential issue. If you've been running your business for a couple years now and you need some revision on operating in a team, you have a team, maybe you've delegated, this is a good book to read. Next, we have Ego is the Enemy by Ryan Holiday. Again, this is going to go in A tier. The ego is a beautiful and dangerous thing, okay? Because there's so many moving components behind our reason why we do things and the reason why we don't do things, right? In this book, Ryan Holiday basically outlines exactly why the ego can completely decimate your effort, can completely decimate your existence, and can completely get in the way of the opportunity that God has for you, right? I have a physical copy of this book right here, and it does outline the importance of not letting your ego get in the way of progress, of growth, of opportunity, because naturally in life, our ego will get in the way if we're not careful, right? Putting that one in A tier. Daily Laws. This is a good book about issues in the real world and gives you frameworks to basically counterattack and fight these issues, right? It's a pragmatic read. It's set up in the daily format, which is good. The reason why I put it in C tier is because I think that Robert Greene is slightly nihilistic in his perspective and view of how to operate and conduct yourself in today's society. I do think he's a bit of an extremist as well. I'm not going to lie. And it's similar to the laws of nature in that sense too. Next, the dichotomy of leadership, okay? I'm going to put this one in B tier next to Can't Hurt Me, simply because Jocko Willink wrote this book about his experience in the SEAL teams, being a leader in the SEALs teams. And it gives a very pragmatic understanding of masculine leadership in war, okay? This book is a great book because it gives direct implications and importance of leadership in a battle setting, like in a setting of war, life or death, and the importance of having the proper leadership, because if you don't have the proper leadership, people can die. There's a great implications behind why leadership is super, super important. And obviously I have the hard copy of this book as well. But a lot of these principles, if you're an extremist, this is a great book for you, because you realize that everything is life or death and you need to take your shit seriously, right? So like this was written by Jocko Willink, like harsh read. That one's a good one. It's a pragmatic read. If you guys like military book. Next, God's Promises for Every Day. Okay, this one's going straight into S tier. It's going right here, just because it's such a pragmatic read. You can read it, and it gives you verses for everything that you go through in this life, right? Very pragmatic read, and this is why I love this book. This is why it's an S tier, because it's a very pragmatic read. Honestly, yeah, this book goes in S tier. I recommend everybody watching this video should get a copy of this book, honestly. Next, we have Crucial Conversations, okay? This book is a negotiation book and understanding how to conduct yourself from a business setting. I'm going to put this one in high B tier, just because it really outlines the importance of having the proper head on your shoulders, making sure that you conduct yourself properly, know who you're dealing with, know who you're communicating with, and how to communicate properly to get what it is that you need, to get what it is that you want, right? This book is key to understanding how to conduct certain conversations in your life in order to survive ultimately, right? Because all life is going into rooms and speaking, right? If you don't know how to speak, if you don't know how to communicate, if you don't know how to have these crucial conversations, you will get walked on, right? I've seen CEOs, I've seen entrepreneurs, even some of my clients in the past, where this is a book that I would obviously recommend for them to read, because it's important to understand how to have those sort of conversations in a way where you can get your point across and you can get what it is that you need out of the conversation in negotiations, in business settings, in life settings, and to be someone who's authentic with the way that you're expressing yourself and the way that you're conducting yourself on a day-to-day basis, right? I recommend reading this book. once you understand and you are in a position where the conversations that you're having are critical, right? If you're not talking to anybody, if you don't have a network, if you're not speaking to, your colleagues, your employees, then there's no reason for you to actually read this book. I would obviously recommend reading some of these books beforehand, just so you build on the right foundation. But this is one of those mid-tier books that come with experience. Next, we have The Purpose-Driven Life by Rick Warren. I'm actually going to put this book in mid-B tier. Let me think. I'm actually going to put this book in high B tier just because this book really does outline the importance of community. It outlines the importance of your mission, of your purpose, what it is that God actually put you on this earth to complete and do, and surrounding yourself with people who understand your mission and purpose to push you to be exceptional, to push you to be excellent, right? To push you to be the person that you need to become, right? This is a faith-driven book, which is why I love it. If you're curious about what God's calling you to do, this is a great book to actually reprogram your mind with, because it gives you the understanding of the spiritual implications behind the reasons why you need to complete your mission and what your mission even is, right? Great book. I actually have a soft copy here. And this book is a commitment, right? Rick Warren's a great author as well, so obviously I recommend it. Next, we have Mastery by Robert Greene. Okay, this one goes straight at the top in S tier for me, just because mastery is such a beautiful process. In order to master anything, you must have humility. You must have a devotion towards your craft. You must have a devotion towards your understanding. And truly becoming a master at something takes time. It takes time, it takes energy, it takes effort, and it takes patience, right? So it completely shifts the narrative of what success is and how to conduct yourself for mastery rather than for money, and for mastery rather than success or for materialistic things. And it teaches you how to become the master over yourself, over your mind, and over your journey. Whatever it is that you want to do with your life, understanding the principles of mastery is going to help you conduct yourself properly from the lens of humility in order to actually become a force in whatever solution you're providing to the world, right? S tier book. Next, we have The Courage to Be Disliked. Okay, I'm going to put this one in B. This book really does break down the importance of being intolerant to the opinions of other people and not caring what it is that they actually think about you in order to succeed, right? Naturally, whenever you're on your path and you're on your mission and you're doing things differently, you're going to have people who don't like you, who feel a certain way about your success, the way you conduct yourself, and the way that you operate on a day-to-day basis, right? The standard that you emulate usually is the reason behind other people's animosity towards you, right? This book talks about having the courage to do it anyway, to continue to persevere anyway, regardless of how other people feel, regardless of what other people think about you. That should not stand in the way of your success. The reason why a lot of people do not start or take action is because they fear the opinions of other people, right? But once you understand that all it is just a reflection of their own insecurity, you become free to be who it is that you need to be regardless of the opinions of other people, right? So this is a key. If you struggle with if you struggle with the opinions of other people and holding you back from your full potential, I recommend reading this book, right? And truly shining, right? God tells us you do not put a lampstand underneath the cupboard, right? You put it on the top so it can shine and light up the whole house. Without losers, there can never be winners, right? It's a natural part of life, okay? Next, and finally, we have the Holy Bible, okay? And the Holy Bible is obviously going to go in S tier, right? The Bible is the highest form of intellectual wisdom and spiritual wisdom combined, right? Sometimes you're not truly going to understand the spiritual wisdom until God reveals it to you and until you're prepared, right? Naturally, in today's society, when we're growing up, we understand the potency that the Bible holds. But the Bible was compiled between a bunch of different writers over a long time frame, right? The reason why the Bible is the most important book to read is because God crafted this book specifically for our understanding in its purest form. Obviously, I'd love to break down the different books inside the Bible that I would rank. Maybe we could do another video on that. But the reason why this book is an S tier is because there's so many different books compiled into this book, which makes it what it is, right? We have the book of Psalms, we have Ecclesiastes, we have Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, obviously the Gospels, telling of the testimony of Christ. Understanding the base principles of how God calls us to conduct ourselves is the most important thing, as a God-fearing man in this day and age, right? Hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you guys are interested in rebuilding your identity through mindset, habits, training, diet, principles, and scaling your online business, guys, go follow me on Instagram at Sean Paul Wolf. Send me a message And I will see you guys in the next one. Ciao.